I've worked with therapists all over the country, and at this point, hundreds of therapists, in helping them build a better private practice. There's a lot of mistakes that you can avoid just by tuning in and listening to folks who have been there before, or in my case, folks who have coached other therapists through the process of building a successful private practice. All right, so one of the biggest pitfalls that I see is therapists who have too much overhead too soon. So you come in, you rent the big fancy office, it's $1,500 a month, and then you say, okay, now I've got to generate some clients. This is one of the worst things you can do at the very beginning of scaling and building your therapy private practice. Having too much overhead too soon puts you in a bind where you've got to constantly be making up for this deficit. And I really think that putting yourself in that bind bleeds over into your marketing, into your sales, or when you get on the phone with a potential client. I think that desperation comes through and they can sense it. So starting out, don't put yourself into a deficit. Start small when you are starting your private practice. All right, number two, and very related to our first point, but don't grow faster than your business. In other words, don't grow faster than your revenue. I see a lot of therapists making this mistake all the time. They get a couple clients and then immediately they get a bigger office or a nicer office or an office suite, and they just assume because I've had some success, that success is going to carry over or it's going to sustain all year long. Or let's say a referral source sent you a couple referrals and you think, great, they're going to fill up my practice, and then they stop sending referrals or they send them to somewhere else. You don't want to put yourself in this position of growing faster than your business. So my tip to you is don't grow faster than your business. All right, the next one, charge what you are worth. I see a lot of therapists out there undervaluing themselves, charging a lot less than $100 a session, whatever it may be. And listen, you have to build a practice that is in line with your values. A lot of us, myself included, come from a nonprofit or an agency background. And so we have to make sense of the social justice piece of what we do. I think that's what makes our industry really different from other service-based industries like an orthodontist or a chiropractor or a lawyer, people like that. But regardless, you've got to charge what you're worth. Again, we talked before about how to scale to a six-figure practice quickly, and a lot of it had to do with the way that you set and raise your fees. So make sure to check out that video if you want to learn more about scaling to a six-figure practice quickly. The way to set your fees is not by looking at other people in your area and figuring out what they're charging and charging slightly less. I see therapists making that mistake all the time. The best way that I think you can set your fees is to reverse engineer them. So effectively set a goal for how much revenue you need to generate, including paying for expenses. And then from there, work your way backwards and figure out how many clients do I want to see per week? How many weeks per year do I want to work? And then how much do I need to generate every single week in order to hit my income goals? All right, if you like what you're seeing so far, make sure to hit that like button so that I know exactly what kind of content you guys are enjoying. Another common mistake that I see in private practice owners is not being willing to spend the money you need to spend early on. Now, this is not to say go into a huge deficit, take out a huge loan. That's not what I'm saying. But when it comes to things like getting a fantastic website, getting a professionally done logo, headshots, getting some nice office furniture, whatever it is you need to do, be willing to spend that money early on. And remember that there's going to be some anxiety that's going to come along with spending that money. That's completely expected and normal. So again, don't overspend, don't put yourself in a huge deficit, but be willing to spend early on, especially when it comes to your marketing efforts and your digital marketing efforts. For something like Google AdWords, which I highly recommend at the beginning in any stage of your practice, but especially a new practice, be willing to spend the money you need to spend to generate those new clients. All right, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified every time a new video comes out. Another common mistake that I see a lot of private practice owners doing is having a really bad website. Now, a lot of us can build a website, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we should. I really think there's a big difference between a professionally done website and a website that is completely DIY. Now, I'm all about saving money, but spending good money on a good website, I think, is something that always pays you back. The same applies when we talk about having a great logo on a new website. I think a logo goes really far. I think it's a fantastic investment. Very rarely have I seen a therapist spend good money on a logo and then regret it later. So make sure you have a great website from the very beginning. Make sure that it's professionally designed. Make sure the layout is intuitive and easy to navigate. You've got strong calls to action in consistent places across your website. Make sure it's very clear what you want clients to do next at every stage of your website. And of course, make sure that your message is very compelling. That leads me to my very last point, my last mistake that I see a lot of therapists making, which is having a really unclear message on your website. You can have the most beautiful website in the world, but if your message is unclear, if it's difficult to understand, and if it's not compelling, then people still won't take action. So put in the work in the beginning to really figure out, what is my message? Develop a really strong tagline, a strong mission statement, even if you are a solo practitioner, and spend time developing that strong copy to begin with. In the long run, you'll be glad you did. What mistakes have you made early on in building your practice? Let us know in the comments below, and stay tuned for the next video coming up. We'll see you next time.